Hi, my name is Eddy Aguirre. This is my presentation on quality of character for MCAA 530. My quality of character word is commitment. I begin talking about commitment by giving you a little story that is very relevant to my current job. I'm a personal trainer at a family-owned fitness club in Oakland, California. Fitness clubs like the one where I work see an increase in memberships at the start of the new year because many people make a resolution to live a healthier lifestyle, which includes joining a gym, working out more often, and becoming healthier. The intention is typically to commit to exercising around 3 to 5 times a week, which usually means cardio on the treadmill or elliptical, and eating better. Unfortunately, the majority of these resolutions will be forgotten by the time March rolls around. So, what happened? Why did these commitments fail? In order to understand why the commitment to a New Year's resolution to live a healthier lifestyle fails a few months into the new year, we need to take a closer look at commitments from a theoretical perspective. The definition of commitment is 1. The state or quality of being dedicated to a cause or activity. 2. An engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. In theory, commitments are based on results. For example, I want to be healthy. It sounds so easy and simple. In reality, commitments are much more about the process. They can feel hard and complex. In my experience, commitment is a term that gets thrown around quite loosely without considering the dedication and responsibilities associated with making that commitment. I work with a trainer who often says everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to do the work. Essentially, what he's saying is there's a desire for results, but no dedication to the process. Howard S. Becker published a paper in the American Journal of Sociology where he analyzes the concept of commitment. He states that the term commitment has been treated as a primitive concept introduced where the need is felt without explanation or examination of its character or credentials. As is often the case with unanalyzed concepts used in an ad hoc fashion, the term has been made to cover a wide range of common sense meanings with predictable ambiguities. The ambiguity with the term commitment is a contributing factor to the failure of New Year's resolutions. Most people feel that they have to make a commitment to being healthy, but when asked, what does healthy mean to you? Their response is, healthy, and lacks the details of what the commitment entails. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an alternative meaning to the concept of commitment based on my experience as a personal trainer. My value of commitment is not determined by whether we achieve a goal, but rather by how well our behavioral processes allow us to successfully work towards the goal with respect to our environment. Commitments are influenced by several factors. In order to get a better understanding, we will look at commitment from a practical view based on our behavioral individuality. In my analysis, there are three behavioral elements that make commitments possible. One, personal and situational motives for our behaviors. Two, behavior consistency in relation to our environment. And three, acceptance of our behaviors. I'll look at the first factor with a quote from a study by Jennifer Chapman in an issue of Academy of Managerial Review titled Improving Interactional Organizational Research, a Model of Person-Organization Fit. In her study, she states that most behavioral scientists agree that both personal and situational characteristics influence behavior. Personal motives that influence behavior may include personality traits, values, beliefs, and abilities. Situational motives may include things like profession, task, or job. A research study looking at commitment and behavior found that commitment making is commonly regarded as an effective way to promote behaviors. The general idea is that when people commit to certain behaviors, they adhere to their commitment, and this produces long-term behavior change. This is a more pragmatic definition of commitment. The act of commitment involves an understanding that our behaviors are in direct response to our personal characteristics and the situational characteristics of our environment. I love this cartoon. I'm a pansexual libertarian Christian or other, situational pro choice gun owner. How do you think that influences her behaviors? And that brings me to the second element of commitment: behavior consistency in relation to our environment. So, how do we make sense of our environment, whether it's personal or situational? How does our environment influence our behaviors that in turn influence our commitment? Um, and how do we adapt to our environment? James D. Herbert published a review of a book written by a group of clinical psychologists titled Acceptance and Commitment Therapy: An Experimental Approach to Behavior Change. In his review, he states that given the strong motivation to make sense of their world, humans are constantly generating rules, which may or may not be accurate or useful, which in turn come to influence their behavior. The rules that we generate or choose to follow, whether they are self imposed or imposed by an organization, are often rooted in a value system that allows for consistency in our behavioral patterns. Howard S. Becker, in his analysis of the concept of commitment, states that, quote, explanations of consistent behavior often refer to a stable structure of personal needs. They predicate that individuals have stable needs and consistently act so as to maximize the possibility of satisfying them, end quote. In a different article published in Psychological Inquiry titled The What and Why of Goal Pursuits, Human Needs and the Self-Determination of Behavior, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan recognize that behavior is, quote, specifically aimed at the satisfaction of basic needs, end quote. Breathing is a basic biological need. There's a quote from Eric Thomas that drives this point. Thomas says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. So when we look at the practical concept of commitment, commitment becomes possible when we engage in consistent behavior aimed at satisfying our basic needs and influenced by a system of rules. But as James D. Herbert explains in his review of acceptance and commitment therapy, a rule-governed behavior has a tendency to be rigid and inflexible in the face of changing circumstances, adding context with a wide range of aversive thoughts and feelings, like self-criticism and imaginary negative consequences, which in turn motivates various self-defeating efforts to escape and avoid such aversive private event. This explains the high failure rate of New Year's resolutions. When we generate our system of rules, they usually don't account for the likely possibility of changing circumstances and our behavioral response. So let me give you an example from my experience. A commitment that I encounter often is to be healthy by making better food choices and exercising every day after work. As we begin to generate the rules, let's see how the changing circumstances change the consequences and the behavior. So, say for instance, one of the rules that we generate is to pack my gym bag every morning. If we change the circumstance to say, well, I don't have any clean gym clothes, the resulting consequences could be go to the laundromat instead of going to the gym. The most common rule is go to the gym and do 30 minutes of cardio on the treadmill. If we change the circumstance to say the gym is too crowded, the negative consequence created is, well, I don't want to wait. I'll go home instead. So when the rules don't support the changes in circumstances, the resulting consequences are often negative and end up undermining the rules themselves. James D. Herbert explains that the real problem is the struggle to avoid, eliminate, or otherwise control such experiences. combined with the idea that such control is necessary as a precursor to resolving problems and otherwise moving forward with one's chosen goal. This is what makes commitments a struggle, the constant changing of rules to satisfy changing circumstances, hoping for a specific outcome. So, what do we do now? How do we overcome the struggle? What strategies are available to overcome the struggle? Which brings me to the third element, acceptance and commitment strategies. An article published by Evan Foreman and Megan Butrin examined acceptance-based behavioral strategies as a way to not reduce the frequency of aversive experiences, but rather foster a willingness to experience potentially aversive internal experiences while simultaneously promoting behavior that is consistent with the desired goals and values. This strategy is derived from the acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, model of behavior change. ACT uses 6 different processes to improve psychological flexibility as a way to promote behavior change. The first is self-context. That is refers to observing to the observation of our behaviors in context to the situation in order to raise self-awareness. The second one, diffusion, refers to altering our thinking around difficult situations to change our behavior. Acceptance refers to being open and willing to experience unwanted emotions without the need to control them. Present moment awareness is the ability to respond to what is presently occurring instead of focusing on the negative thoughts of previous experiences. Values are important qualities that act as reinforcers to the consistency of behavior patterns. And finally, committed action is taking action in the direction of our values in context to our acceptance and awareness of present self. All of these 6 factors are intended to lead to psychological flexibility, which is defined as the ability to contact the present moment more fully with acceptance and mindfulness as a conscious human being. So, what's the value of commitment? The value of commitment is to shift the focus from the goal itself to the process required to achieve the goal. An emphasis on behavior, personal situational circumstances, and tasks can help raise awareness of how we consistently respond to the unexpected. This awareness leads to a greater understanding of ourselves to remain flexible when circumstances around us are in flux so we can accomplish our tasks.